You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. This is episode 139, being released on June 9th, which is Men's Health Month. And I'm really excited for my next guest because not only is he a man who's going to talk about men's health, but he has a really special niche that I think is an important conversation to have because not many people are having it. So we're actually recording this in April, and April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. And that is why my guest, Ben Rossi, is the perfect person to be on with me today. So, Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. 27 years of fitness coaching experience, 13 years dedicated to the Parkinson's community. You're one of the founders of the nonprofit In Motion, which offers community-based wellness for people with Parkinson's disease. I think you just celebrated 10 years, and I can only imagine how many lives have been positively impacted. What else? I mean, you're the creator of a signature program called Better Every Day. You own a performance training center called Ability to Perform. You're on various boards and foundations and all the things. So, I mean, my goodness, whatever are we going to talk about?
I have no idea. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I like to start by just letting the guest share a little bit about your background and give us, the ins and outs of who you are, where you're from, and we'll get to present day, all the things that you're doing.
All right. Sounds good. So I'm Ben Rossi, as you said. I'm the Chief Program Officer and co-founder of just an awesome place called In Motion. We're located in Beechwood, Ohio. I'm also a owner, as you said, of Ability to Perform, a performance training center that really helps out the general population. We do Parkinson's intensive training. I train athletes. I guess I love to serve people. That's what I do. I am a man of faith and family, and I like to just help people get better. And that's why Better Every Day is my saying. And I say it all the time. There's so many amazing things that health and wellness and living that type of lifestyle can do for everybody. In 27 years of fitness, I found my niche, like you said, in Parkinson's, and discovered a way to change people's lives. And how lucky am I to be that person that gets to help people? I mean, that's awesome. And when I found out that exercise, not only is it amazing for athletes and general public and everybody else, but when I found out that exercise was so powerful for these people with Parkinson's, I was immediately drawn to it. And it became my just immediate passion. I'm just so proud of it. So happy to be in this field for sure.
Well, I mean, it's really impressive. I love meeting someone who's as much of a dinosaur in the industry as I am. I'm going on 29 years. So we are rare, right? I just heard another podcast where they said like the average lifespan of a fitness trainer, personal trainer is a year.
What?
Right. So, and we are pulling that average way, way, way up. So yeah, tell us what role did fitness, wellness, how did that show up in your life growing up? Were you in sports, athletes? Were your parents immersed in this wellness lifestyle? Or give us a little of that background.
I am a lifelong athlete. I was a baseball player in the background, but football was my mainstay for sure. I played my whole life through college, and I had a father that was always nudging me to work out and to get involved, and really helped me develop that passion, that edge. And so fitness it's just been my mainstay. I love the way it feels. I love the way it changes your body, it changes your mentality, gets you psyched and ready. It's always just been a big part of my life. Beyond playing football, I was a captain in high school. I played in college until I ruptured a tendon my junior year, unfortunately. But I eventually got into bodybuilding and found myself on stage at 6% body fat, which I'm telling you right now I would never do again. I'm very happy I did it in our profession. To be able to transform yourself, I think it's like you could do that for anybody then if you've done it for yourself. You're a product of the product. Yeah. So it's just been a deep rooted passion of mine. I taken that in so many directions in my career, taking it into helping others. I was a head coach for many, many sports for my son, about 15 years. And, another thing that I love that I did, but I'm glad it's behind me. It was a time commitment and a half. How do you run businesses and coach at the same time? So I've just always loved sharing that. Early on in my career, I spent a lot of time going into a lot of local private schools nearby and just really trying to enrich young lives and the power of health and wellness. We know that school is so important, but so is your health and your fitness, and it's just as important. And so I really enjoyed that. I really took that into the childhood obesity scene and really spent a lot of time working with young athletes and young kids and teaching them that power. And, it's just gone from there. That's took me into big IMG Academy in Florida. I got to spend a good couple of years of my life traveling to Florida, Bradenton, and it's like Disneyland for athletes there. It's where I learned so much about character, mentality, and vision, and all these other things that are involved in training the best of the best athletes. And I believe it was that background that spun me into this world of Parkinson's, merging that science of sports science into amplitude training for Parkinson's, which of course, like I said, has become better every day. So that's amazing. I had a phenomenal time. I ran into and met and worked with the Wounded Warrior Project for quite some time and was able to share exercise with individuals, that really, really needed the help. And Siobhan Phillip was a gentleman that ran over a roadside bomb. And he came into me one day, came to my facility in a wheelchair, feeding tube, having a trach, just everything you can imagine, stuck in a wheelchair. I ended up helping him to walk again and to, just all these things help you build and develop this passion to help people. And it's just so deep rooted. So.
Well, and that's why I was immediately drawn to you. So we met through another organization that we have recently become a part of. And it's really been amazing to connect with other like-minded and especially fitness professionals who've been in the industry for as long as you and I have. We've seen it change a lot, right? And my business is called Better Beings, Better Minds, Better Bodies, Better Beings. So it literally is exactly what you're talking about, right? Helping people be better, whatever that means. And through movement, one of the titles and chapter in my book is Movement is Medicine, because truly head to toe, inside and out, there is some kind of movement that takes care of everything. And you talk about, influencing young lives. And I think about boys and young men and how much they need as far as positive influences in their lives. And let's maybe talk a little bit about the men's health side of it. And then I want to get into the Parkinson's a little more.
Sure. So men's health, where would you like me to take that? I suppose.
Let me ask you this, because you're a man, and I think we're probably roughly the same age. I'm in my early 50s, so you might be a little younger, but
we're close. You got 2 years on me in fitness, and
So you guys are tough. You're oh, I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm just fine, and I'm going to keep eating my bowl of cereal every night because this is what I do, right? I don't know. You're so hard to train to get to care about your health.
You're right. I'm one of those, you got to heed the warning in life. You got to heed the warnings. I don't want to be that guy. If you don't make the time right now, then you got to make the time later. If you don't take the time to get yourself healthy and be the best that you can be now, then you better be prepared to handle sickness and stuff later. And I just believe that. It's always been that driving force for me. I want to be the best that I can be. Be at your best when your best is needed. And I agree. Men are very stubborn. And, we think we got it all going on. No. We don't pay attention to the right things. And, those of us that are in the fitness world, maybe we do, but I have to say the majority of men's health, men do not. It's not a priority. Drinking water, the most simplest thing in the world for people to do, especially men, they don't do that. And we need to keep our muscles strong. We need to protect our bone health. We have to, especially working in this Parkinson's world now, we have to be strong. I don't want to be someone that falls. I don't want to be that. And so it is our job as fitness professionals to swoop up everybody. And men are tough. That's an interesting topic. And I've really, not that I'm scrambling to figure out what to say here, but I look at my population. I do see more in training. I've seen way more women than I have men in my profession. And not when it comes to coaching athletes per se. I've trained them all, but general population, they don't make the time. Is it about making time or is it about taking the time? That's an interesting topic. I'm scrambling to go with this. I I don't know. I'm not sure, Michelle.
Well, and I think, to the point of earlier talking about getting in when they're young, right? Teaching kids, it's not just about looking a certain way or bench pressing a certain number. Like, that's probably what the boys are more interested in, but it's about your health, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, all the things that you learn, like the life skills. A year or so ago, I had all my gymnastics teammates on, and we talked about the lessons from the mat, right? Things that we learned in the gym that had nothing to do with gymnastics that carried us in life and life lessons. And, I think, gosh, there's so much good to come from sports and from engaging in any kind of movement, and to have that positive influence in a male role model. Because I know a lot of boys don't have positive male role models in their lives, right? And so I imagine as a coach and as just somebody who's around this kind of world, you've really been able to kind of at least plant the seeds into some young men's lives. And my guess is you've got to watch them grow and go along in their journeys. If there's anyone out there, maybe it's a parent who, doesn't have a kid who's like not interested in exercise. And it even bothers me that we have to label it something, right? We have to call it exercise because now it's just another thing we have to do. Whereas back in the day, it was just, this was our life. We just moved our bodies all the time. But if there's anyone listening who appreciates and understands the value of being physically fit, strong enough to do what you need to do, and so that your future self is going to be good as well, but maybe their son doesn't buy into it, or their, young adult son doesn't buy into it, or their grown-up husband doesn't buy into it, or whatever, because you've been through it, what are some tips that you would give them?
I'll start with, you prompted a thought, and it had to do with, being an athlete. And I'm going to go that too. I love you got your gymnastics team on here. Being an athlete, yes, not everybody has that background, but being one and being able to share the values and the discipline of playing a sport, like I said, mentality and those things that really can carry you through beyond this fitness world, take you into your life. It'll make your career will flourish. Your relationships are better. The thought that you prompted was some of my elderly, I'm going to say like mid-70 population that I work with right now. It's amazing how difficult it is. And as a fitness professional, so you understand this, but how difficult it is to teach some of the most basic exercise components to these individuals. How to squat properly. The posture is terrible. It's like, I work with a lawyer. You could tell he sat at his desk 40 million hours a week because he's so stooped, and you work on it and you work on it and you harp on it. And it's so not ingrained in them, and which makes it extremely difficult as a professional to train it. You feel like you're beating a dead horse and you're going over and over again. Let's get your posture right. Let's correct you. Let's go from there. So if you're someone that's starting as a young person, from a parent to teach a young person, get involved young. You'll change the course of your life. Especially look at our world right now. Look at the young people that spend their life on their phone. We always talk about that as fitness professionals, how's your neck health? How's your posture going to be as you get older? These things matter. So, if you commit young to training your body properly and teaching it the right mechanics and how to handle these things, you're not going to have those issues down the road in life. And so mental health is a whole nother thing right now. Let's talk about that. Since post-pandemic time, and people are going through it, and especially young people. And so, to establish the right attitude and values and morals and discipline through living a healthy lifestyle, you can get past these things. You can always rely on it and lean into that in your life so that you could change the course. You can change that direction. You can change your mental health just by being a healthy person. Which is like why I mentioned drinking water before. Start simple. Yeah, it is. It scares me. It scares the future of the youth that did not get to experience, being an athlete. So it is our challenge, and it is our mission to help young people rise up so they can live that healthy lifestyle as they get older.
Well, I share those concerns. It's funny you say that about drinking water, how simple it is. When I'm teaching corporate wellness, I'm usually positioned right at my kitchen sink. And I know so many people are chronically dehydrated because every year I do a virtual vision board workshop, and I am astounded by how many people have drink more water on their vision board. And so literally I flip on my faucet. I'm like, y'all hear that? That's running water. literally the easy, you don't have to go walk 3 miles to find water and hope that it's not going to poison you.
Right.
It literally comes out of a faucet, and yet you're not drinking it. And you're right. It's like these so simple, basic things. But I really think it goes back to, we're not actually ever taught how to take care of a human being, right? We're just like, just go wing it, autopilot. Or it's also part of the, what I call the YBI, young, beautiful, and invincible. You can get away with neglecting this, and look at me, I'm amazing. What do you mean? I don't need water. I've actually had people tell me I don't need water.
Jeez,
what?
Listen, I can speak
yes,
on a
you
personal
do.
level. Yeah, Michelle, you're right. And I can speak on a personal level. I mean, like my daughters, I have 3 daughters. I mean, they love, not just my family, but they love Starbucks. And they talk about, how they have anxiety and they have all these things that are happening. My heart's got to flutter, right? Have you drank water today? Well, I brought it to school with me. Well, that's great. I feel like I'm dumping out a full tub of their hydro flask every single night. Yeah, right. Take a look at themselves. That's the stuff that scares me about today and our youth going forward. Like, we've gotten so into this caffeine lifestyle and these, drinking all these heavy drinks that are, come on, they're loaded with stuff. You and I both know. You drink coffee with cream in it every day, you're going to gain 10 pounds a year. I mean, it's out there. It's a fact. So yeah, we could go all day on water. I better drink my water.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I think that is, that's something I've been teaching and preaching for almost 29 years now, is like, let's just learn how to take care of a human being. And it's now it's hard. Well, it's very easy actually, but it's complicated because we have so many choices. And back in the day, we didn't have choices, right? It was, go outside and play. Here's the food I'm going to feed you. And that food usually came from somewhere outside. There were no phones and social media. There certainly wasn't a Starbucks on every corner. And if there was, you better believe my parents were not giving that to us.
Never.
No.
Water on the hose back then,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And speaking of posture, I'm literally the posture police. Ask my family, because I am always like talking about posture. And I'm on a local radio station every now and then, and they all talk about, Michelle, and they all sit up straight because they know Michelle's going to talk about posture. But you're right. When we get to 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, so much of the chronic pain we have is because of decades of poor posture and doing things then out of alignment, which now have exacerbated issues, accelerated wear and tear. So now we get to a point where we have to fix a bunch of things. That's why if we can just teach people from the get-go, or at least no matter what age you are, where you are in your health and wellness, to start paying attention and know that things didn't just happen for no reason. There's a reason this happened, so let's figure that out, and then let's be proactive to prevent it from going forward. So let's dive into the Parkinson's world, because this is generally something that shows up a little later in life. However, it didn't just magically show up later in life, right? It has been building and building and building. I'm curious, is there some personal connection to Parkinson's that you have that really kind of ignited your passion in this field?
Well, I love that question. People think I have family or a friend. It was a longtime client of mine. Actually, one of our late founders, because there's 5 founders of InMotion. He called me on a Wednesday afternoon. His name was Lee. Called me on a Wednesday afternoon. He's like, man, I've been diagnosed with Parkinson. Have you heard of it? Well, of course I've heard of it, but I studied it maybe for 5 seconds in college forever ago. He goes, I heard that exercise in Parkinson's is becoming a big, big thing. And again, this was 14, 15 years ago. And would you be interested in learning, or would you be interested in helping? I said, listen, Lee, of course I want to help you. I've worked with you forever. Whatever it takes, I'm happy to help. And he's like, good, because you're leaving Friday for a course that's going to take all weekend. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I signed you up for it. I paid for it. You're on your way. Good luck. And I was like, okay, I'm going. But that was a 2.5-day course that truly that's what changed my life. That was like, whoa. Well, it opened my eyes to this whole nother world of, Parkinson's is a tough disease. This is slowness of movement, this rigidity, this people have freezing of gait, speech problems, falling at high fall risk, small handwriting. All of these things happen, depression, stigma attached to it. To find out that exercise is just as powerful as medicine, as the medication, this levodopa carbidopa that individuals take with Parkinson's is mind blowing. So having the background of fitness and being a performance coach from training athletes. And it was neat to bring these two together, and it really just changed the whole, it's like flipping a switch. I'm in a whole other direction now. I brought that back to a local community senior center that I graduated from high school in here, and said, hey, I got this great idea. There's 35,000 people in Northeast Ohio with Parkinson's. What do you think? What do you think about me starting this class here? Oh, go ahead. You can have it. Have the space. And it was like 5 people turned to 10. A local channel, a local broadcasted a story on us. It was like 35 people a week for 10 years in this class. And it was one class a week at a senior center. And around the same time that I was teaching this and that I got qualified to teach these classes, local hospital, the University Hospital, started a boot camp here. And it was a boot camp for Parkinson's. It was the same year. And it was the first time, it was at a nice facility. There was 200 people there with Parkinson's. And I got to see what a community of people with Parkinson's look like, because there's so much stigma attached to this. And so to see all these light bulbs going off of, oh, I'm not the only one that has this. Look at all these other people. So this was a typical conference. Your morning is neurologists, movement disorder specialists, speech therapists speaking about what's going on in Parkinson's. The afternoon was some breakout sessions, and they had brought in a boxing session and an exercise class and some programming. Well, at 4 p.m, the conference ended, and it was like, well, we'll see you next year, because there's no programming going on other than my class in a local senior center, far, far away from where this was. And it was upsetting. That was upsetting. And so I worked the next year to really establish some relationships. I owned a fitness center called Ability to Perform. I started more programming there, and I went to the next year's event. And it like tripled in size. It was at a huge facility, and same type of setup, tons and tons of people there, and the same outcome. 4 p.m, goodbye, I'll see you next year. And that was it for me. And I really just reached out to every form of care I could find for Parkinson's and said, what if? What if we decided to bring all this under one roof? So that's where that story began. I could keep going on that if you'd like. It's a heck of a story. But,
yeah. Well, I think if you would, because my guess is most people don't think about Parkinson's at all unless they have a personal connection to it. So for those who it's not even a topic on their radar, maybe just talk a little bit about the disease itself, the progression of it, what they think is causing it, and obviously what we do to manage and even prevent it.
So this is neurodegeneration. This is the breakdown. This is a buildup of protein in the brain, the basal ganglia of the brain, not to get too technical. But that protein buildup is that's where the symptoms present themselves. If you know somebody that has a tremor, they've had Parkinson's for many, many, many years. That's a later sign of it. They've done a lot of research. There's some phenomenal people that have put some great books, one in particular called Upending Parkinson's. And these individuals talk about what's causing it. And because that's always the biggest question. What causes Parkinson's? How do people get this thing? And the biggest thing we know is that it's environmental. And it starts in the environment, and there's these zones around the world that really are more prevalent to them. It's specific to a chemical called paraquat, which is in everybody's fertilizers that they put down. A lot of time early on, it was presenting itself in people that had farms. These type of things get in water systems, and that's a problem. That it starts to filter out. And there's neighborhoods of people that have Parkinson's because of where they've lived. So very, very, it's scary to think that. It's scary to think that, if it's in water, it gets in food, and it gets in scary stuff. Bas Bloem is in the Netherlands. He's like the number one movement disorder specialist in the world. And the Netherlands they banned that chemical in there and have watched Parkinson's go down and down and down and down. And in America, they refuse to ban it. Makes me crazy, but I can't really do much about it on my end, except just advocate and advocate and advocate. Parkinson's it's if you're not used to seeing it, it can be scary to see. I always tell a story. My father he had a dear friend with PD, and he would shuffle his gait when he walked. And shuffling, as we know, you could catch your feet on the ground. It's going to lead to a fall. And the crazy thing about Parkinson's is that these individuals don't realize that they walk a certain way, that their voice volume is real low, or that they're writing and it gets real small. They don't see these things, so I told my father, tell him. He doesn't know. A part of this whole process of working with Parkinson's is to help individuals advocate for themselves, to recognize certain things, to educate them. I mean, I say that because since we've opened In Motion, since day one, 10 years ago, the number one thing I learned was that individuals will go to a neurologist, get a diagnosis. Yes, you have PD. They do these little tests and, they push and pull on you. Oh yeah, you have Parkinson. And then they don't tell them what to do next. It's almost like you're okay, here's your diagnosis. Well, good luck. And I'll see you in 6 months from now. And we'll manage this together, so on and so forth. And that's terrible. So these individuals would come to me and they would have no idea what they have. So we teamed up with a phenomenal organization called the Davis Finney Foundation. And they have the best book for Parkinson's called Every Victory Counts. And it just takes it chapter by chapter on what is the diagnosis? What is Parkinson's? What does that mean? How do you manage it? How do you become the self-advocate? What are medications? What's exercise do for you? What's the role of a care partner? So we teamed up with them and I said, hey, listen, can we turn this into a curriculum? So we teach PD 101. It is like we have to educate. The other side of the education is these neurologists at diagnosis, something that I really struggle with because we are community care. What I struggle with is that individuals with Parkinson's at diagnosis need to be referred to a physical therapist. I'm community care. You need to be surrounded by other individuals and fight this fight together and appreciate that camaraderie that comes from it. But you also need that check-in. You need that one-on-one care. Someone can do a personal assessment with you that can see where your areas of strengths are, where's your areas of weakness, and teach them how to correct those things in themselves so that they can take that to their community, kick butt when they're with us, go back through, and we create this continuum of care that can really manage this disease. So, we see this all the time, and I give a million talks on Parkinson's all the time, and I love to do it, but that's always my first question. At diagnosis, how many of you were sent to a PT? And I'll tell you what, you get like one or two hands, and it is a disappointing thing. So the management of Parkinson's is in my opinion, up to now, things are getting better and better, but it's been mismanaged. And we're In Motion. We are one of a kind. There's nothing like it in the country, in the world. I've traveled to Barcelona, to Japan, and other places, and just have shared, showing that in aggregate In Motion, we are improving the lives of people with Parkinson's. How are you doing? So we've learned. I put together this prescription for exercise for people with Parkinson's and to help them manage it properly, starting from being educated, having the right care team, and understanding. I have 50 classes a week in my facility, and they all go in different categories. We have healing arts. We have physical wellness. We have an area called Fit for You, which brings me to the story of a late founder. So Lee Handel was a gentleman that got me into Parkinson's. Another longtime client of mine that I battled through all the way to end stage with him of Parkinson's was a gentleman named Alan Goldberg. He's there's 5 founders, and so myself and then these others. And Alan was a phenomenal businessman who got smacked with this Parkinson's. He had a farm. He loved his horses. Great guy. He would get up every day and practice mindfulness. He would come and see me or my boxing coach 6 days a week. We would beat him down. He loved to work out, which I loved, and then he would go home and paint. And I tell you this because he was probably one of the most symptomatic people with Parkinson's. He could not sit still. He was wheelchair bound. The worst tremors you've ever seen. I mean, just all over the place. Very, if you work with Parkinson's, you learn really how to work with these people. You fall in love with them. And I just loved Alan. But he taught me something so important about exercise and how to manage my community. That's what he left behind because he never got to use In Motion. And so this idea of a healing art in the morning, followed by a physical wellness class, followed by some form of Fit for You, which is, I refer to Fit for You as this is my art, my handwriting, my speech, my swallowing, cognition type training, music classes, so on and so forth. So this gentleman who would practice this way would leave me and go home, and I would go with him, and he would sit in front of a canvas. And if you walk the halls of In Motion, all his paintings, there's like 30 plus paintings hanging on the walls. They are meticulous. They are beautiful. This man would sit symptom free in front of a canvas. What? So I had to dive into this and understand what is going on. So you can create hyper creativity in people with Parkinson's. You can bring back things that you love to do. So that, as the chief program officer, I'm a founder, but I also get to run this whole place. That's the science I work with. He left that with me. And so So I have a pretty strict process from orientation, assessment process that we go through as a community, and I've color coded my community into 4 levels: yellow, green, orange, blue. Yellow is my wheelchair walker, all the way up to young onset, still working population, blue, that can come in and just kick butt. And being able to divide my community to that allows me to also lay out, what should you do? I do these coaching sessions where I sit down individually, which is amazing in a community setting. I sit down individually with my participants and I explain to them, this is how you assess. This is the areas of weakness I see. Here's your strengths. This is what I recommend for you to take and where you should go until I see you again in 6 months for our next assessment. And it's the idea of uplifting these individuals, helping them really true to find their potential, maximize their potential when they're in their classes, which is why I had to color code this community. It wasn't something that happened immediately. When I started working with PD, it was like, everybody in one room, let's go to like that class I started with 35 people, wheelchair walker. I mean, everything in there, and learning how to cope with that. You always you realize at that point that you're coaching to the lowest level in the room when all these others can do so much more. So being able to divide and conquer my community as just help people to change so much. It really is like beautiful to watch.
So I'm thinking about like everybody I know or know of that has Parkinson's is a male. Is this something that afflicts men more often than women?
Yes, it does. And it's been proven that it does. But at the same time, women progress faster. And that's where the science is leaning. And that's very interesting. I study these books all the time, trying to understand why that is happening. So we are about 59% men, 41% women in our facility. Yeah, I do see that.
And let me ask you this. I imagine once people find your program, they don't want to leave, right? So what are some of the benefits you've seen physically, like from people who come in day one and maybe, how long they've been with you? How do you see them change?
Well, I mean, yes, I'll go into some of the physical changes. You see a lot of that happen, but what changes first is mentality. So I am a mentality guy. I'm a 1% better every day guy, right? What does that mean? The power of 212, 211 degrees, water's hot, 212 degrees, water boils. When water boils, it produces steam, and steam can power a locomotive. So 1 degree difference can create so much change. So we've instilled this good, better, best, never let it rest to your good is better and your better is best mentality. And everybody that walks in our facility, they wear this on their sleeve. That's who they are. So it's like it started there. I see a monster shift in mentality. There's this belief. I mentioned being a self-advocate. You see these individuals just say, well, wait a minute. I got this. I can do this. I love this. This feels so good. I didn't know I could do this. Wow, this is so fun. I've never done this before. Or I'm getting something back that I feel like I lost. So mentality is the number one shift. And, as I said before, that stigma of I have Parkinson's. This is a little scary. And people are going to look at me like I'm, funny. You're the same person you've always been. You're just packaged differently, right? So they start to see that. And then they see people around them. So camaraderie kicks in. And then this feeling of community, it really is real, right? It's so, you hear all community and camaraderie. It is real. Like, it's so powerful to watch people interact. So you see this mentality shift. You see this, oh my God, I love my peers. I can't wait to. So that creates this, I got to get to the gym feeling, right? You have your accountability partners. So those things happen right out the jump. And it is fascinating to watch. But physically, you see people walk better. Our stride gets better. I see people that leave their canes in the room. They come in with a cane, it's sitting in the corner when they leave, like, oh, I forgot it. It's crazy to see that. So, like, I think it's that belief kicks in. They go through these, training. Our training is specific to, we go after amplitude, right? So Parkinson's is, we're slow, we're small, we're rigid. So to train somebody with Parkinson's, you have to help them understand what power means. So this is where the background of training athletes merge with the science of training someone with Parkinson's comes into play. Once we train you how to go big and loud, the louder you count, the bigger your moves get. Excitement fills the room. Movement changes. You see people's rigid hands open. So it's about working on extension of the body and doing it through amplitude. And so we see so many things. So I mentioned counting out loud. Voice volume changes. Like, all these things can come back if you train them. It's like anything else. It's a matter of rewiring the system. we're going to work around this Parkinson's business, and we're going to hardwire the system to work better. And so I'm seeing constant improvement. And, it's interesting, going way back to the beginning of our conversation today about working with an elderly population. Let's talk about that population. This new world of elderly that are in right now. You think exercise was a part of their life? No way. So I know there's a benefit right out the gate of they're going to see huge changes just because they've now entered into this. I'm exercising. I'm somebody that works out, and you see them changing. It's strong. I love seeing it. It's like awesome. The challenge lies in helping people understand that with Parkinson's that, the science leans towards 3 heavy duty aerobic sessions a week, getting your heart rate to 80 to 85% and being able to sustain this for 45 minutes. Those are the individuals when they understand how their body should feel, where that breathless moment comes in when they're working out, magic starts. You see it happen. And does that happen with everybody that walks my doors? Let's be realistic. Absolutely not. And that's, I want to say yes. I want to say yes. We've changed them in other ways. So it's it's awesome to see that happen.
Well, I mean, Ben, your community is so blessed to have you. You're an unbelievable ambassador for all of this, right? For the passion that you bring to it and the awareness. And what if somebody doesn't live in Northeast Ohio? How do they get to be part of this? And, maybe they don't have Parkinson's. Maybe they know someone who does. Maybe they're concerned that might be in their lives. Like, what can they do?
What do we do? Of course we handle that. All right. So one, there's some phenomenal people in this industry that I've worked closely with for many, many years, and they're all over the country. You always connect people with people. But in motion, we do everything virtually as well. So we always start from assessment. Guess what? We do virtual assessments. And then we have an entire library of recorded videos. We Zoom almost every class in our facility while we're teaching. So we have it's not just inside of our walls. We served about 2,000 people in the past 10 years, pushing nearly 200,000 class visits in-house. But that doesn't include our online service and the work that we see there. And every month we have about 200 participants in our online world. So listen, the goal here in my heart is to serve as many people as I can with Parkinson's. There's no ego attached to this. This is about how do we do more? So one of our big passions in the past year and a half is, can we replicate in motion? And we've taken a deep dive in the other founder, Dr. Karen Jaffe, and I and our CEO, Kathy Schwartz, have taken a heck of a deep dive into square one of this company and went backwards. So how did we start all this again? And where did this go? We've documented everything. And we've actually are going to be replicating in Farmington Hills, Michigan. We teamed up with Kirk Gibson, a baseball player that for the LA Dodgers, everybody knows him with his arm. LA Dodgers, he hit the home run that won the World Series for them. Well, Kirk Gibson has Parkinson's, and they have the Kirk Gibson Foundation in Michigan. And we are happy to say that we've hired staff, and we are going to be opening that facility in August of this year. So we're super fired up for that. And the sky's the limit with that because we have a lot to do. That's not enough for me. I would like to see these all over the place and just team up with these phenomenal professionals that are around the country and do this. So it's about collaboration. That's the biggest challenge out there. And I'm a no ego guy. I want to help others do this. And that is what matters the most to me. So.
That's incredible. This was, for a hard topic, this is a very uplifting conversation. And just thank you so much for bringing awareness and bringing your passion. And I know there's somebody listening that you are absolutely going to change their life. So anything before we officially wrap up that we haven't covered that you think would be helpful for people to know?
No, just that you can change the script in your life. Right? What you're doing today doesn't mean that's going to be the same thing tomorrow. It doesn't have to be. Right? Have the power, the will, the discipline, the grit to change your script. You don't have to just be complacent in life. Drink your water, like we said before. Start on square one. That's number one. It's the easiest thing to do. But get out there and be your best self. Be your best when your best is needed. That's going to do amazing things for you. That's going to do amazing things for everybody that's around you. We want to help everybody we can. So go be your best self.
This is great. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. We will put all of the ways to get in touch with you, your foundation, anybody who wants to get involved, anybody's got an idea for collaboration. I know that they will be able to find you. So thank you again for coming on the show. And everybody listening, I know that you know now it is your turn to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.